Frontier Echoes rides again, with a tale born from dust, wind, and the whispered legends of the old American frontier. If you love stories of forgotten trails, hidden love, and the kind of courage that grows quietly in a man's heart, then saddle up. Today's story reaches into the life of a cowboy who spent years chasing shadows and storms alone until fate arrived on his doorstep in the form of a beautiful Apache woman brought home by the daughters he raised in silence and longing. Lean in, partner, because this one runs deep. His name was Colt McAllister. Out on Bitter Creek, folks simply called him the Lone Rider. He lived on a stretch of land where the sky seemed too large for any one man's troubles, yet Colt carried enough sorrow to fill it. He had once been a family man with a wife who could laugh the thunder quiet. But the frontier was a place where dreams blew away like dust, and when sickness took Maria from him and left him alone with two little girls, he buried not only his wife, but half his heart. Colt raised the girls the only way a cowboy knew how. He taught them to read tracks in dirt, to braid a horse's mane tight against the wind, to shoot straight enough to scare off coyotes without wasting ammunition. Their home was a quiet place, a cabin set against the mountains where dawn always arrived pink and gold, washing across the open plains. Della, the older girl, was 16 when the story begins. Iris, her sister, was 14, wild as a March colt and twice as stubborn. They were good girls, hard-working and loyal, but they knew their pa lived locked behind a door in his own mind. A door he rarely let anyone open. The nearest town, Red Mesa, lay 2 hours away by horse. Every few weeks the girls rode in for supplies, while Colt stayed back to mend fences or check the cattle line. He trusted them, but he worried too. The frontier was no place to relax. He'd lost too much already to forget how easily a life could break. One late summer morning, the kind where heat gathers early and the land smells of sagebrush, Colt waited for his girls to return from town. He sharpened his knife on the porch, the rhythmic scrape filling the still air. But around mid-afternoon, he heard something strange. 2 horses galloping fast. Too fast for a simple supply run. When Della and Iris came into view, he saw their expressions first, worried, urgent, protective. And between them, slumped over Iris's saddle, was a young woman. Her long dark hair streamed like a black banner. Her arms hung limp. Her dress was torn, stained with dirt and blood. Colt dropped the knife and ran to them. "Pa, she's hurt," Della said, her breathing ragged. "We found her by Willow Pass. Someone chased her. Someone hurt her bad." Colt lifted the woman carefully. She was light, but the tension in her body told him she had fought hard before collapsing. Fever burned through her skin. Her face, beneath grime and bruises, was beautiful in a way that struck him unexpectedly. Not fragile beauty, but strong, sharp, like a carved piece of obsidian. "Apache." Colt carried her into the cabin and laid her on his bed. He fetched water, boiled cloth, cleaned her wounds with the slow patience of a man who had performed these motions once before, long ago. Della and Iris hovered beside him, trading looks that said they were scared but determined. "Who did this to her, Pa?" Iris whispered. Colt shook his head. "I don't know. But whoever it was, they were close. Tracks were fresh on your horses. You two were followed." The girls stiffened. Colt didn't say more, but in his eyes something fierce sparked to life. For 2 days, the woman drifted between consciousness and fever. She spoke in Apache, words the girls did not understand. Sometimes she cried out. Sometimes she whispered a name, Taza. Colt stayed by her side, driving off sickness the only way a cowboy could, with stubborn refusal to give in. By the 3rd day, she opened her eyes fully. They were deep brown, clear yet wary. She looked at the low ceiling, at the wooden walls, then at Colt seated beside her. "Where am I?" she asked quietly. Safe, Colt replied. You're at my cabin. My daughters found you. Her gaze softened. Your daughters, they saved me. Name's Colt McAllister, he added. And you are? Niley, she answered. Her voice carried both pride and exhaustion. Niley tried sitting up, but Colt gently pressed a hand to her shoulder. Easy. You ain't healed yet. She studied him. You helped me. You didn't have to. Colt nodded once. No one deserves to be left in the dirt like that. A shadow passed across Niley's features. They were hunting me. Men from town. They said my brother stole a rifle. He didn't. But they wanted someone to pay. They came after me. Colt felt heat climb his chest. Red Mesa had always carried tensions between the settlers and the Apache tribes. But violence against a woman, that made something inside him tighten. You're safe here, he repeated. And he meant it. As days turned into a week, Niley's strength returned. She helped the girls with chores when they insisted she rest. She moved quietly, but there was power in her presence. She had an ease with horses, a calm with wild things. One evening, she coaxed a wounded hawk to feed from her hand. Iris stared in awe. Pa, she's like magic, she whispered later. But Niley wasn't magic. She was simply someone who had learned to listen to the land, same as Colt once had before life fractured him. A slow shift began in the cabin. Della, usually serious, would smile more when Niley spoke. Iris asked her endless questions about Apache traditions. And Colt found himself observing someone he had not expected in his home, someone who brought warmth without trying. One night after supper, Della leaned close to him on the porch. Pa, she said gently, she's good. Niley is good. Colt grunted. Didn't say she wasn't. Pa, you don't let yourself look at people anymore. Maybe you should. Colt blinked, caught off guard by his daughter's honesty. But before he could respond, thunder rolled across the horizon, signaling a storm. The next day, trouble arrived in the form of 3 men riding up to the cabin. Colt recognized their leader, Warren Briggs, a rancher with a temper and a hatred of anyone not like him. Afternoon, McAllister, Briggs said with a too-casual drawl. We heard you got yourself a guest. Colt stepped forward, blocking the doorway. Even if I did, none of your business. Briggs smirked. Apache girl. Saw her tracks. She's a thief. Belongs to us. Niley, standing behind Colt, stiffened. I stole nothing. Briggs's eyes flashed. That tribe of yours has been stealing from settlers for years. We're just taking back what's ours. Colt's jaw tightened. Men like Briggs used lies as freely as bullets. But Colt was done losing people. She stays, he said, voice low. Briggs tilted his head. You willing to stand against all of Red Mesa over one Apache woman? If that's what it takes. Briggs spat in the dirt. You'll regret it. The men rode off, dust rising behind them. Colt felt Niley's fear like a tremor beside him. But he turned to her, steady as stone. You're not alone anymore. That night, Della and Iris slept close to each other, sensing a storm worse than thunder on the horizon. Colt sat outside with his rifle across his knees. Niley stepped out silently and sat beside him. You risk much for me, she said softly. Why? Colt gazed at the stars. Because my daughters brought you home. Because you needed help. Because I couldn't walk away, not again. Niley looked at him, searching his face. You carry a deep sorrow. Colt breathed in sharp. Losing someone you love does that. Niley nodded. I lost my father last winter. Grief changes us. For a long moment, they sat in silence. The wind rustled through the pines. Somewhere an owl called. Colt felt something in him shift, as if a weight he carried for years finally cracked enough light through to warm him. Over the next few days, The family prepared for whatever Briggs was scheming. Colt reinforced the barn. Della organized supplies. Iris practiced her aim. Nayeli carved talismans from cedar wood, placing them above the door for protection. At dusk 2 nights later, the attack came. Horses thundered toward the cabin. Torches flared in the darkness. Briggs shouted, "She's ours! Hand her over or burn with her!" Colt and the girls stood firm. Nayeli joined them, her bow drawn. The first bullet ripped through the barn wall. Iris screamed, "Duck!" Della grabbed her sister and pulled her behind cover. Colt fired back, hitting one of the attacker's saddles and sending the man sprawling. But Briggs wasn't there to scare them. He was there to destroy them. He charged forward, torch raised. Fire caught on the dry grass near the porch. Flames leapt hungrily. Colt grabbed a bucket, but Briggs fired, the bullet grazing Colt's arm. Pain seared through him. Nayeli saw it happen, and something ancient and fierce rose in her. She loosed an arrow with perfect precision, knocking the torch from Briggs's hand and sending it spitting into the mud. Briggs roared in fury. "You filthy!" His horse reared as another arrow struck the ground near its hooves. Nayeli's voice rang across the chaos. "Leave us. Now!" Briggs saw the determination in their faces. The firelight reflected in Colt's eyes. The girl stood unshaken behind him. This family, stitched together by loss and chance, would not break. Briggs spat one last curse and retreated. The other men followed, vanishing into the night like cowards chased by their own shadows. When the danger passed, Colt dropped to one knee, gripping his wounded arm. Nayeli rushed to him. "You're hurt." He smiled faintly. "Nothing I can't handle." She pressed her forehead to his, relief trembling through her. "Thank you for standing with me." Colt gazed at her, really seeing her. Strong. Brave. A survivor. Much like himself once. "Nayeli, I didn't just stand with you. I chose you. And I'd do it again." Her breath caught. "I didn't think I'd ever find a place to belong outside my people." Colt touched her hand gently. "Maybe you found one here." The girls watched from the doorway, smiling in that knowing way daughters have when they've seen love forming long before the people involved admit it. Weeks later, the cabin felt different. Lighter. Warmer. Colt's laughter, once rare as rain and drought, came easier. Nayeli walked the land with the confidence of someone finally safe. She taught the girls to track better, to read plants, to ride bareback. Colt found excuses to work beside her. Whether mending fences or tending the garden, she insisted they expand. One late autumn evening, as leaves turned gold around the cabin, Colt gathered the girls. "I reckon I've been walking alone a long time," he began, voice thick with emotion. "But I ain't meant to anymore. And if you two are willing, I'd like Nayeli to stay with us. Not as a guest. As part of our family." Della grinned. "Took you long enough, Pa." Iris whooped. "About time." Nayeli approached, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "Are you sure? Your world and mine are different. The townspeople may not accept this." Colt stepped close, lifting her chin with a tenderness that surprised even him. "Folks can live with it or not. What matters is us. You, me, the girls. We choose who we are. Not them." Nayeli's eyes shone. "Then I choose this family. I choose you." And just like that, the lone rider was lone no more. Life didn't magically turn easy after that. The frontier was still harsh. Prejudice lingered. Briggs and men like him muttered threats under their breath whenever they rode past. But Colt never bowed his head again. He stood tall because he had something worth standing for. Someone who reminded him that love wasn't something you lost once and never found again. Sometimes it came in unexpected ways, carried home by the laughter and courage of two daughters who wanted their father to live again, not just exist. Nayeli became the heartbeat of the homestead. Colt became her protector, partner, and quiet strength. Della and Iris grew into fierce young women shaped by two cultures blended into one home. They learned that courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the hand you take after years of pushing the world away. Sometimes it's trusting someone enough to let your heart breathe again. And Colt, the cowboy who once sat alone on dark porches listening only to the wind, now sat with Nayeli at his side, the girls telling stories, by lanternlight, the future stretching out before them like the open plains. He'd lived through sorrow. He'd lived through storms. But for the first time in years, he was living for something good. And that, partner, is the kind of ending the frontier rarely gives but never forgets. Because love, when it's true, survives fire, fear, and the fiercest storms the wild can throw. If you want more tales like this, stay with Frontier Echoes. More stories are waiting down the trail.